Hello, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Bluegrass IIBA Lunch and Learn. I am Aaron Whitberger, Vice President of Membership of the Bluegrass IIBA chapter. We are so happy to have you here with us today. Today, we have Peter Lutz, a Senior Business Analyst at Cincinnati Insurance. And I should name the disclaimer since we did mention Cincinnati Insurance as his employer. This is not a insurance. It's not approved by Cincinnati Insurance. What you will hear today are Peter Lutz thoughts and not Cincinnati Insurance. With that, Peter Lutz, as I said, Senior Business Analyst, Cincinnati Insurance. Cincinnati Insurance, of course, is in Cincinnati, Ohio. Peter Lutz is in Atlanta, Georgia. And I knew Peter
And I'm not
back
at the
when he
beach.
on
I'm
the
not at the
beach,
beach.
not at the beach.
Right.
And I've known Peter for many years back when he lived in New Jersey. And that was a chapter leader of the Golden State IIBA chapter when it
Garden State.
existed. Garden State,
Yep.
sorry. And he has since moved on to Atlanta. He has worked for um, Deloitte Consulting and then moved from there to Cincinnati Insurance. So we are thrilled to have Peter Lutz with us to share with him um, Know Your Problem Domain. Take it away, Peter.
Thank you, Aaron. Um, as Aaron said, I'm Peter Lutz. I'm a senior business analyst at Cincinnati Insurance, and I'm going to be discussing my thoughts and experiences with respect to knowing your problem domain. Um, as Aaron said, this is not sponsored by or approved by Cincinnati Insurance, but I just wanted to share some of my professional experiences. This is not a technique per se, but rather a set of ideas relating to various techniques that make up what one should consider in identifying and understanding the problem domain. So let's get into it. So Aaron already introduced me. We will talk a little bit about what's this thing called a problem domain? What is problem analysis? And then more specifically, as we dive deeper into the weeds, we'll talk about a problem statement. What is that? How do you define it? We'll talk a little bit about stakeholders, how we analyze them, how we can uncover some of their issues and pain points and some of the opportunities that might be present or might not even be known in order to help the stakeholders uh, take advantage of those opportunities. And we'll talk about business analysis planning and approach. Business analysis planning and monitoring, as we all know, is a knowledge area within the BABOK 3.0. So we'll touch on that a little bit. We'll talk about scope, how a couple of the techniques that we can use to define the scope, because that's important in terms of identifying the problem domain. Then we'll talk a little bit briefly about the agile horizons. There are three horizons within the agile extension to the BABOK, the strategy horizon, the initiative horizon, and delivery. And then we'll have a little bit of a Q&A and discussion, something informal, and I'm sure everyone will want to participate in that. So it's a little bit about me. I've been a business analyst for many years. I hold the CBAP certification and the Agile Analysis certification, certified Scrum product owner, and I used to be in the life insurance industry, so I have the FLMI, and I also help out with the Bluegrass chapter in terms of marketing as the VP of marketing for the Bluegrass chapter. Problem domain analysis. What is it? Well, I think this slide is interesting because if you look, you can see that there are multiple problem domains, there are multiple solution domains, um, and they could possibly intersect, but more often than not, a problem domain is specific and you generally know or understand, or you seek to understand what that problem domain entails. And as you iteratively work through the problem domain, you will come up with solution alternatives or solution options that um, would fall into the solution domain. But it's important to be clear. What I'm trying to have folks understand here is that it's important to maintain that distinction between what's the problem domain and what's the solution domain. There's a tendency, not among we professional BAs, but in people who are not familiar with business analysis, we rush to solution. And I suspect I was guilty of that at one point earlier in my career. But I think it's important to keep top of mind that it's key to keep the two distinct. You must first understand what the problem domain is before you begin thinking about a solution domain. So what is the problem domain? We should be ensuring that we're addressing the right problem. Spoke a moment ago about multiple problem domains, multiple solution domains, but what is the specific problem that we're looking to remediate, or the opportunity that we're looking to help our business stakeholders take advantage of? And why do we need to know a lot or as much as we possibly can about the problem domain? Who's impacted? What stakeholders? How do we uncover their needs? I apologize. I can't, this screen is a little bit scrunched, but the last bullet here is talks about how we communicate to stakeholders. Different stakeholders have different needs when it comes to being communicated to, and we must keep that in mind when we are communicating to stakeholders and keeping their preferences in mind so that we continue to engage with them and continue the dialogue. This is my definition of a problem domain. It's the entirety of what comprises the problem, the system, procedures, the people, and most importantly, the business. We must always remember that we're serving people and we're serving the business, the organization for whom we work. They pay us. And so we have to solve problems for the business so that they can continue to make money and be profitable. Problem domain also involves the context. Where does that problem exist? Is it in accounting? Is it in policy administration? Is it in billing? Need to know as much as possible about the context and the environment in which the problem exists. And part of that entails identifying or understanding the current state. We talk about current state and the as is analysis before we even begin to consider the future state. So if we know our problem domain very, very well, that will help us in identifying feasible solution options and alternatives, or what we might consider to be feasible. We would, of course, uh, vet out those solution options in terms of cost, time, etc., and whether or not it truly does meet the business or address the business need and problem that we're looking to solve. Problem domain also includes all of the relevant knowledge and the processes and constraints that are needed to truly understand and solve the problem or leverage that opportunity. I meant to take advantage of that opportunity. This is a problem statement that I created for a project that I've worked on. It's a risk summary application. It's part of a policy admin system. So the risk summary application within the ACE Prime platform is a critical tool used by underwriters to assess risk, document underwriting decisions, and manage their assigned accounts. However, the current application no longer effectively supports underwriting activities and has become a barrier to efficient and consistent work. Existing workflows within the application are fragmented and cumbersome, requiring underwriters to navigate multiple screens, systems, and documents to gather information, record decisions, and complete routine tasks. Key risk data and historical context are sometimes difficult to locate. To address these challenges, the risk summary application must be rewritten to streamline underwriting workflows, improve and standardize risk documentation. Notice how when I was structuring this problem statement, I identified or provided the context and the background relating to the application and what were the problems or pain points that were being experienced by stakeholders. Thus, the need has been articulated basically and defined in terms of what is broken and what we need to do to clean up or repair what's broken and to make things better. I should mention that this is I did use Copilot somewhat to generate this problem statement, but I used many of the artifacts that I had created, meeting notes, etc., and I got the skeleton, if you will, of the problem statement. So don't be afraid to leverage artificial intelligence, specifically Copilot at CIC, or if you're elsewhere, you could use whatever model your organization or your business supports. But I just wanted to get this on paper for my own benefit so that I could understand what was the box that I was operating inside, and this was a very good way to jump off and to dive into some of the specific details regarding what needed to be done in order to remediate the problem. So as BAs, we sometimes act as a detective, and we're looking at the symptoms of the problem. And as a detective, the detective finds the clues. Well, we find the problems and the symptoms for how we can address that problem. So what is the business problem we're trying to solve? Who are the end users and our customers? And as I mentioned a moment ago, we need to really understand what's the current state. A moment ago, I spoke about that in the problem definition statement. The current state is key in understanding where we are and what is not functioning properly or what could be made better when we begin to define the future state. But our starting point is always what's the current state? What are the constraints that we operate under? What are the pain points that are existing or are in place today? And then we can think about, well, what are the business outcomes? How would we define success? How would the business define success and ensure that there is ideally consistency and clarity relating to success conditions, success criteria? We have to try to ensure that all of the stakeholders are in agreement, that there's transparency, and that we are solving the same problem. We're all working toward the same objective of making the business operate efficiently and better. What are the systems and the integrations that and the constraints that already exist? What's the scope of that problem and the true business need? So we talk about stakeholders. They are, in addition to the problem, they are at the center of our universe. We work with the stakeholders and for the stakeholders. In order to do that, we need to identify them, identify who they are, categorize them, prioritize them. All stakeholders are important, but some are more important in many ways than others. But we need to understand what their role is and their influence. Where are they in the organization, and what impact could they have on the problem and ultimately on the solution that we are going to create? And what's their level of interest? You could find stakeholders that are apathetic. Uh, that's a complexity I'm not really going to address here. But if you have stakeholders who are interested and who have a level of influence and who have requisite domain knowledge, you're light years ahead of the game in terms of uh, working with them and getting the project delivered. Their relevant knowledge and expertise. I would argue that if you have stakeholders who are SMEs, subject matter experts, this is a huge advantage. And just through this last bulletin or earlier today, I think if you know who your sponsor is, who's funding the project, that's another important thing to keep in the back of your mind, because the person who pays the bills ultimately gets to make the decisions. And you need to please the sponsor in addition to the other stakeholders. This is what's called an onion diagram. It's a useful technique to help define who your stakeholders are uh, categorize them in terms of where they are in the organization, what role they play, understand their level of influence, their interest, and involvement with a project or product. I have not really used this technique. I don't know. Has anyone on the call ever used an onion diagram, and what did you think of it?
I love onion diagrams. One of the best things about it is it allows you to identify where stakeholders should be involved and when to bring them in for different things. It
Thank you,
also
Thea.
shows you how close they should be to your core team versus, out there somewhere.
And as you can see, the application or the business is the at the core of this onion diagram. Then the developer, PM, operator. I would argue that the product owner in an agile context is in here as well. The customer, consultant. There are others. This just gives you an idea of what this tech how this technique works in terms of identifying and naming the stakeholders. The next page talks about a stakeholder register. This is a technique that or a tool I have used. I always, regardless of whether I'm working in a waterfall environment or a an agile environment, I always try to identify who the stakeholders are, what their title is, their role, and what requirements they specifically have, what their concerns are. And as you can see, I've listed this register has the sponsor listed first. I think that's important to note because the sponsor, as I said, pays the bills. Other stakeholders might include developers, uh, quality assurance testers, and certainly business stakeholders from various lines of business, depending upon what your product is or your project. It would be in an insurance context for me, underwriting, and the various levels of underwriting folks that I am currently working with. In when I was with Deloitte, this would vary depending upon the consulting engagement that I was working on. I worked in a healthcare environment and had healthcare SMEs and other folks who were critical to defining the project and the business and functional requirements. So, what's the impact? How are we defining? What are the benefits that we're looking to realize? Um, and who is going to benefit? I can't remember the name of that Latin expression. Who, qua, there's some Latin expression that talks about the who benefits from something happening or a product or something being built. We talk about time. I think that too often is a something that part of the five W's. We don't talk a lot about that, but I think that if you're dealing in something that is key, let's say to getting a product or service to market, obviously you'd want to get something delivered and to market sooner rather than later, getting a minimum viable product to market before the competitors uh, get there. That's a huge plus, a huge win. And then of course you'd iterate through the life cycle of building out that product and making it as distinctive as possible. So I think we need to keep top of mind when is that feature needed and why is it needed? Is it going to truly make a difference? Is it a game changer for us in the marketplace or helping to, as I said a moment ago, helping to make underwriting workflows more efficient? And then what happens if we don't achieve that need, meet that need? Who will be impacted and what will be the impact? Are we going to lose market share potentially? Are we not going to realize certain revenue streams? Will the business be subject to regulatory impact? is there something that we need to do to meet regulations that we would potentially incur a financial penalty for? That I think would probably be a large driver in how and what the impact is, and what our timeline is, and what we do and how we do it. So business analysis planning, as I said, we start with the who, start with those 5 whys: the who, the what, when, where, and why. And we need to ensure that we have talked through all of the options. Make sure we first and foremost understand that problem domain. But before we begin to really construct or develop anything, we need to ensure that all of the alternatives have been fully discussed and are understood, so that there is consensus. That's the word I was looking for earlier. Ideally we build consensus as business analysts, in not just in terms of the business problem domain, but the consensus in terms of the alternatives that would be considered for solving that problem. With respect to stakeholders, we should be really aware of what information is out there. Are we going to, or do we need to perform a document analysis? And this, along with the interviews and or other techniques, surveys, questionnaires, what have you, this will enable us to ask the right questions. So we review existing documentation and current processes, current state / as is, before we can even begin to discuss about the to be or future state. We identify those key stakeholders and decision makers. Most importantly, we seek to understand the business goals before we discuss any solutions. And as I said a moment ago, the 5 W's are key. If we ask open-ended questions are those that are not getting a yes or no response, but are meant to spur a detailed discussion, and to also, I would argue, build collaboration and relationship with our stakeholders, so that we truly understand who they are, what their needs are, even if they haven't articulated a need. I think it's important as business analysts to uncover that, to say, what about this? Have you considered the feasibility of this? Would you perhaps need X, Y, or Z? Having those open-ended questions, or asking those open-ended questions, enables us to really uncover what's going on and how we could best serve our customer. We need to ensure that if there's any assumptions, that they are validated. Can use process mapping as one technique. And lastly, I want to make sure I understand what the business is saying. So many times after asking open-ended questions, I will rephrase that open-ended question using what their answer was, restate it. It validates the stakeholder. It helps build collaboration and empathy and understanding. I think empathy is an often underutilized skill. We don't know everything, and no one knows everything, but together we can know a lot more than we would know as individuals. When we have all of the information relating to our problem domain and some of the alternatives that we have discussed with stakeholders, we can begin to frame a scope. What's the scope of the problem? What's the scope of what we're going to deliver? We have to understand that the context of that we're operating in, and we define and plan how we're going to do our business analysis. And we can define the scope, what's in scope, which is the most important part of scope. No, I take that back a moment. What both are equally important. Understanding and defining what will be delivered, i.e. what is in scope, is important, but also understanding what is not in scope, what is going to be deferred or is not going to be addressed at all. It's not part of the problem. If you can identify that, that will go a long way toward helping you ensure that you stay on point. And they've just listed a couple of BA techniques that will help with identifying the scope. The context diagram is a very, very useful technique. Oops, sorry about that. Also, a scope model. You can define the scope using a scope model, and there are other ones. I didn't list them here, but you can readily find that information in the BABOK. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to add with regard to what I've said about scope and anything else I've said?
I can add something if you don't mind, Peter.
Please do.
And it's just from a perspective point of view. Like when Peter says, "Hey, this is about problems and identifying problems and things that are in scope," you could also substitute the word opportunity. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a problem, so to speak. It could also be an opportunity to upgrade a system or whatever. So you can substitute the word opportunity, I think, to anything that you're saying here. And that might be obvious to a lot of people, but just in case it's not obvious, uh, I think that that's true. I don't know if you agree with that or not, Peter.
Yep, I do. I
So
do.
you're not just solving a problem, you're also taking advantage of an opportunity. Uh, could
Well,
be
if you think about it, a problem is in a way an opportunity because you can improve
exactly
if you address that problem. So that's an opportunity.
right. So just a perspective thing. So in case people aren't thinking that way, that's how I was thinking too as you're going through this.
Thank you.
Sure.
This is a word cloud that I found that I think really summarizes well what we do and what we ought to be doing with regard to knowing our problem domain. And we've talked about current state analysis, understanding where the problem or what is the problem today and what are the parameters around the problem, who's impacted, how it's making an impact, and that is I would suggest the root of what we do, understanding problems, understanding the current environment, um, strategy alignment. How is the solution going to impact or align with strategy? That's one of the interestingly the area within the BABOK that I think I found it very challenging to understand it. But strategy and strategic planning is something that many folks would think is just something that executives consider or worry about. It's not, that's not true. We as BAs and the solutions that we help to uh, define and deliver are key to strategic alignment and how the business is owned and operated. And this is how we deliver value to the organization by ensuring that the solutions that we build uh, are in alignment with the organization's overall strategy. Stakeholder roles and mapping, we talked about that a moment ago. Understanding who they are and how they operate within the organization. Process model and the context diagram and the problem statement definition that I spoke about earlier. That I think is perhaps it should, in my view, be a standalone technique within the BABOK, but it's kind of defined loosely in a variety of the knowledge areas. Does Aaron, do you agree, or Thea? You're both CBAPs. Do you have any thoughts on that?
You hit it on the head.
Yes, absolutely.
This is some folks may not know about this particular model, but I kind of like it. It really talks about, oops, thing likes to change on its own. The business analysis core concept model, to my mind, uh, summarizes business analysis, and within that, the problem domain. The business analysis core concept model discusses change and how the active transformation in response to a need is addressed. That need, a need is a problem or opportunity to be addressed. Solution is a specific way of satisfying one or more of those needs in a specific context. The stakeholder is a group of or individual who needs who has we group or individual with a relationship to the change, the need, or the solution. The value, that's the worth or importance. The cost benefit, it's largely stakeholder driven. Um, how useful is something to a stakeholder within a particular context? And the context, that current state, it's the circumstances that influence are influenced by and provide an understanding of the change. So when you look at the core concept model in its totality, it summarizes well everything that we do as business analysts and how we evaluate the problem domain and determine what are the true needs and what are the solutions that can be used or that would potentially be used to meet those needs. Agile horizons. This is dealt with in great detail within the Agile extension to the BABAC. I have the Agile analysis certification, and there's a lot of meat out there. There's a lot of information that is key to understanding problems, how they're defined, and how solutions that meet or address those problems are defined in an agile context. The strategy discusses largely what is the organization doing and how does this effort, how does this solution to this problem, how does it fit into the organization's overall business strategy? What does the market look like? Who are our competitors? What are we looking to achieve with as a result of solving the problem? What's our overall goal in terms of this particular strategy? The initiative is really how we identify the needs and the options, and we explore the various solution approaches or alternatives. We assess feasibility, costs, and resources. That initiative could equate to a project or a development of a product or a product part of a product. It's basically where the tire hits the road, and then the actual delivery horizon. This is how we iterate through the delivery and development of the product and of the solution, and we learn and adapt as we go along. I cited here a link. I'd be happy to share it with anyone. It's called Applied Agile Analysis, the three horizons. That goes into a lot of detail relating to these three horizons. And as I said earlier, this is discussed at length in the Agile extension to the BABAC. And you could also reference, here's a plug, Aaron, reference Aaron Wittenberg's book, Agile Business Analysis, A Guide to Product Thinking and Delivery. I only started skimming that recently, and it's a very, very good text for anyone who really wants to understand Agile, particularly in a product delivery context as BAs. Now I'd open it up to any questions that folks might have. If you need me to go back to any particular point in the deck, I'd be happy to do that as well.
Peter, how do you handle it whenever you get pushback on documenting current state?
I would say I'd ask questions. Why? What specifically is, when you say pushback, you need to classify what kind of pushback it is. Is it a lack of understanding or a lack of agreement with what the current state is? Um,
When
most of
they
the
don't
time,
want you to do exploration, they don't want you to do discovery. They just want you to make the change.
I would I would probably, I don't know that I've experienced that, but I would likely push back in my own diplomatic way and really try to understand the who, what, where, when, why. Um, the change can't be implemented without understanding it, and that point needs to be hammered home. If you're looking to just uh, throw something against the wall, uh, folks need to understand that's not going to, in the long term, that's not going to be a successful strategy because it doesn't. It might meet some of the business need, it might achieve some of the problem, but I can virtually guarantee it's not going to be a comprehensive solution. And I think it's better also to underpromise with respect to delivering a solution and over deliver. That's not the same thing as what you were talking about, Thea, with respect to pushback, but I think
Right?
pushback should be challenged to understand what is the real resistance, what is the real issue, and it's the success criteria need to be identified, I think, in order to validate that approach is correct.
Thank you.
Daliana, it's good to see you. Do you have any questions or comments?
Hey, good to see you as well. Well, not questions, but I was related your presentation with the bootcamp content that we have, and it's great. So now um things start clicking in my mind. So thank you for that.
Sure. You all know who I am. I just threw this last slide in here in case you wanted my contact information.
You live on Wall Street? You live at
No,
55 Wall Street?
no, I didn't. That's a bank, I believe. But I liked the slide, so I appropriated it.
That works.
All
Well,
right. Anybody have any
Aaron,
questions for Peter?
I got a question for you, Peter. So, in your experience of this, problem identification, in your, in the past, have you ever not done this right or shortcutted this? And then what kind of price did you have to pay down the road, if you don't have a good problem or opportunity definition? Have you ever had experience with times when you didn't have that, and then what happened?
I would say I'm not sure it's exactly what you're referring to, but I when I was with Deloitte, I worked on defining uh, the product backlog, and I rushed through defining any of the user stories. I created essentially waste. I didn't know it at the time, but came to find out later that much of the functionality that I thought we were building or going to build was not truly in scope. So I think one of the takeaways for me there was don't rush to define the backlog. Be deliberate and ensure that you have a good scope understood, that your product, the product features are fully defined, and that will position you for more success in making sure that the right product is being built, that you're not wasting time. Does that
Cool, thank you.
kind of answer your question?
It does. And I've had the same thing happen. I mean, as a new BA, probably lots of new BAs will run into this. If you don't get this right, you'll go down the wrong track. You'll you'll do a bunch of work you don't need, or you'll have a big gap of work that you should have done that you didn't do. And it will eventually probably come out. But if you get a good problem statement or opportunity statement to start with, it'll save you in the long run. So it's spending a little bit more time up front will pay off on the back. And if you rush into doing like you said, your backlog without having a good problem statement, you can waste a lot of time.
I'd like to on what Ben just said. We talk about how much time we waste. We talk about how much money we waste, but there's also the demoralizing aspect of these people put in their blood, sweat, and tears, and it's all being thrown in the trash, and you can't get that back. It takes a lot more time to unbury that and build them back up as a team that is enthusiastic about the project if you've taken them down the wrong path.
So Jackie said in the chat, and constant validation with them is key.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. Yep. Always kind of getting that reinforcement that you're still on track with the problem or opportunity, and very important.
I think
Shared
also
understanding. That's what that
I
is.
think you hurt your relationship with your stakeholders if you go down the wrong path and you send them down, do extra work and that, and you got to kind of back pedal, and that your stakeholders will notice, and they will, basically hold that against you, and that so you will hurt your relationship if you go off track.
Absolutely. And the School of Hard Knocks is a great teacher. So if you've ever done this,
unfortunately,
you've felt the pain and you know how important it is to get it right the next time. So especially new BAs, this is an opportunity to learn from us old I don't know what you would call a seasoned VAs that have made this mistake.
Marinated.
Yeah, you make this mistake once or twice, and then you're like, okay, I've been bit by this before, and all those things that are bad happen, and you're like, okay, I'm not going to have this happen again in my next project. So then you take more time next time. So this is very valuable.
It's challenging to know the full context of in which you operate, because there are a lot of systems and workflows that aren't necessary, at least in my experience, aren't always known. Many times they're not necessarily related, but one should still be aware of them and explore how they might have an impact, forms or some other upstream or downstream systems. I think that's key to ensuring that we're building the right solution, that we understand our problem, we understand the stakeholders, and that we're looking out for their best interests. That's really what it's about. I see the BA as sort of the lifeguard in the pool and making sure that everyone's safe and sound in the challenging waters that they may find themselves in.
Okay. All right. Any other last thoughts or comments? Did you enjoy the presentation?
Yes.
Got a lot out of that?
Well done.
There's your applause there, Peter.
Thank you. It's good to see everyone, and thank you for joining.
Yeah, good job, Peter. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. Really appreciate you being here and joining us today. We hope to see you at future events. So you can look at our events page to see all that we have going on at the Bluegrass IIBA chapter. Thank you and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
See you.